All right, Lane Kiffin has an unhealthy obsession with Kirby Smart. Dean Legge, Matt DeBerry riding home. By the time you watch this, the Atlanta Falcons could have a new head coach. I'm pretty sure it won't be Kirby Smart, but Lane Kiffin, college drinking buddy, has suggested that it be Kirby Smart at the Falcons. Dean Legge and Matt, what's the deal here? Is he just poking the bear a little bit?
I don't know if he's poking the bear. I mean, that's just Lane being Lane. I think he's kidding. Maybe not, but I get why coaches don't want Kirby Smart at Georgia.
Yeah.
2 national championships in the last 3 years, probably more to come. He's got this thing rolling, and he came very close to doing it again this year. So everyone knows what Kirby's doing at Georgia. He took the blueprint from Alabama. We're seeing Dan Lanning take that blueprint from Kirby at Oregon. So the machine's rolling, and I think Lane's doing a really good job at Ole Miss, but he knows there's still a few teams in the way of him taking that program to the next level. And I think they'll push for one of those top 12 spots next year. But part of me thinks that there's too much Ole Miss hype already, and that they might disappoint, take maybe a small step down. But a lot of people, I think, would love to see Kirby Smart leave Georgia. I don't see it happening. I don't see him as a guy who wants to be in the NFL, mainly because he recruits so well, Dean. I mean, he's going getting his guys. So I think he's perfect where he's at. But I totally get why Lane and maybe a few other coaches are saying, hey, Kirby, why don't you go try something else? Right? You're doing really well at Georgia. Maybe go somewhere else.
Yeah, the thing to remember about Ole Miss is that, and I do think that Lane is doing a pretty good job. I don't think it's going to be quite what everybody is making it out to be. I mean, I'm old enough to remember that Trevor Lawrence was never going to lose a football game after some of these reactions after bowl games. So it gets a little ridiculous over time. But with that said, to put it in context, Ole Miss has had a lot of head coaches, man, this century, and there have been a lot of them that have been there for like 5 years or fewer. So David Cutcliffe was 6 years, then Ed Orgeron, then Houston Nutt, then Hugh Freeze, then Matt Luke. I mean, well, I should start Tommy Tuberville in '95, Cutcliffe in '99, Orgeron in '05, and then Houston in '08. 12 for Freeze, 17 for Matt Luke, and then 2020 with Lane Kiffin. In that time that I've just read, they've wound up with top 10 seasons twice. This is one of those top 10 seasons. Now, they've had a top 11 under Lane as well. So I think you can see, they've gone to the Sugar Bowl, the Peach Bowl. He knows, though, that Kirby's not going to leave Georgia anytime soon. I don't think there's anything, I would be curious to see what he would do with the Falcons. But the fact of the matter is, and it's not an insult to Kirby, because I do think he's a very good coach, like scheming wise. The reason they win at Georgia and Alabama is because they have better players. And in the NFL, particularly at the Falcons, you don't usually have the better players. You have maybe a player or two that's better than everybody else. And, right now the Falcons don't have that even.
Yeah, I think the Falcons need an NFL guy. But as far as, Lane at Ole Miss, I still think that's a stepping stone job for him. I think he could do better, and I think he's not going to be at Ole Miss forever. And there's only a certain point you can take them, because it's hard to bring in a top 10, top 5 class at Ole Miss. And I do think he's doing a good job of recruiting the portal as well, bringing guys there. But if you're other programs and you're seeing how he's taken Ole Miss to, I mean, they're a top 10 team. I think that's what they're going to be in these final rankings. That's really impressive. I mean, it's still Ole Miss we're talking about. And with the no East and West next year, so he's going to have to fight and recruit against everybody in the SEC. It's really tough. Kirby's definitely in his way. He's still got Nick Saban. Things are going to get tougher with Texas and Oklahoma coming in. But I do think he's doing a very good job there, and maybe one more, pretty good season next year. And I definitely think we could see him somewhere else. I don't know where that's going to be right now, but I've always said he would do very well at a place like Florida. I think Billy Napier's time could be coming up soon if he has another losing season. Next year, I have a video coming up, or maybe it's already out, talking about that. But, Kirby's done an A-plus job, and I think Lane Kiffin has done a very good job at Ole Miss as well. I don't know if Lane Kiffin will go back to the NFL. We might see Jim Harbaugh go back to the NFL.
I forgot about that. That was a disaster.
it was a disaster, but he's definitely grown more as a coach. And
Yeah.
I think a guy that's fun to play for. He does have a sense of humor. He doesn't take things super seriously, but he has fun with what he does. And I think he's come a long way and really grown as a coach, even from his days at Tennessee. I think he's happy where he's at, but he's not going to be at Ole Miss forever.
Well, but I think the reality of both those schools, and I think the playoff expanding really helps the Rebels for a lot of different reasons. Um, by the way, they close the season next year at LSU, Oklahoma, at Arkansas, Georgia, Florida, and State. So they're going to get off to a pretty good run, and then it's going to get really challenging in the middle of the season. I mean, Furman, Middle Tennessee, Wake. They play at Wake, and then they play Georgia Southern. Then they host Kentucky and play at Carolina. They should win all those games, and then they get into a real serious fight. They probably will be top 5 by the middle of October, and I just don't know that they'll hold on to it. But I think the difference in the case of both these programs is, Georgia is a blue blood, and Ole Miss never really has been. I mean, even in my lifetime, I've never seen Ole Miss be, well, they've never played for the SEC championship, and I don't know if that's going to change anytime soon, Matt. I mean, like, the '90s under Billy Brewer, that was a pretty early, most of the '80s. That was probably, frankly, that was one of the best runs of Ole Miss football, and it included a lot of 6-loss seasons, but or too many. And then David Cutcliffe did a good job, but if you don't have the players, you can forget it. And I think that's what Lane's trying to do now. At Georgia, though, they're a betting favorite to win the national championship this coming season. It's not surprising to you, is it? No.
No.
Yeah, but they are going to have to go through this slog of things. Very quickly, I know we're sort of talking about Ole Miss more than we are. But what I mean, Lane and Kirby go back a long way. They both have dealt with Nick. Lane Kiffin was an extraordinary coordinator at Alabama. He was really, really good. As much as Sarkisian was good, Lane was really good at Ole Miss. But Kirby is Kirby not his best coordinator?
Oh, Nick's?
Of Nick's.
I think so. I think so for sure. And they know each other very well. I mean, going back to those Alabama days, Kirby, running the defense, along with Nick Saban, but Lane Kiffin running the offense. They've gone to battle quite a few times, and Kirby definitely won that battle this past year in Athens. And that stadium environment may have been the best we've seen all season. And Lane Kiffin said afterwards, we need bigger guys. We need more size. You can't beat Georgia if you don't have size. Alabama has size, and they were able to play and beat Georgia in the trenches. Ole Miss has never been a program like that. And I know they beat Georgia in 16, but that was a completely different Georgia. That's not this Georgia team.
No.
And Lane Kiffin knows that.
No, and that was a pretty good Ole Miss team. Excuse me, an Ole Miss team, by the way. That 16 team. I've got off the screen. I think they played in the. The Sugar Bowl, the Peach Bowl that year. They got killed, but they played in the Sugar Bowl, and that's a big deal for them. No. That Ole Miss team crumbled. Now, what happened to that team? I'm thinking of the year before when they played in the Sugar. What happened to that Ole Miss team? Did they? Oh, these are all I don't know. They lost to the Knowles. They lost to Bama. They just killed Georgia, but then they just fell apart. They lost to Arkansas, LSU, Auburn, Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, and I think that was when they ran Hugh Freeze out of there reasonably with good reason. But look, it's always fun with Lane and Kirby. I think that what I'll be curious to see this season is, will both these teams be in the playoff? Just very quickly, the top 10 for the AP has come out, Matt, and Georgia's at the 4. Let me quickly go to the rankings. So it goes Michigan, Washington, Texas at 3, Georgia 4, Bama at 5, Florida State and Oregon are somehow tied. Mizzou, Ole Miss, Ohio State, Arizona, and I'm going to stop at Arizona at the 11 because it's only going to be the top 11 teams. The 12th will be a FBS or a low tier conference champion, which is ridiculous. But anyway, will Ole Miss make the playoff in 24?
I think they could if you. I mean, you rolled that schedule out a couple minutes ago, and it seemed pretty easy, especially with them returning their quarterback, which is a big deal as we've seen in college
But they
football.
lose Junkins.
Yeah, they've got some backs, but they're bringing back the wide receiver that I think is big, and they're bringing a lot defensively in the portal, and they did get bigger.
So you think they beat Kentucky and South Carolina? Do they win in Tiger Stadium? They win in Death Valley?
I don't think so. LSU
Okay.
should take a step forward.
I think Oklahoma. I would say that's a toss-up game for Ole Miss. I would maybe just go with Ole Miss on that one. I think Oklahoma. That's going to be tougher than they think. They win at Arkansas. They probably win at Arkansas, right?
Yeah, and I think they're better than Florida too.
Oh, for sure. I think they'll lose to Georgia, beat Florida, and beat State. I can't. So I think 10-2, maybe they do get in, but it will come down to Georgia, Oklahoma, LSU, those games, and you don't drop any dumb ones. But hopefully, no one game will determine. Hopefully, the playoff committee will do a better job this season. I'll just put it like that. Thanks for watching.